Whoa. He's driving this one, Keith.
Hello.
Right. Am I driving it?
Yeah. Did you start the meeting?
No.
Okay.
I think Priya's got it.
Oh,
Yeah,
Priya. Oh, there you are.
So what's the time? It's 7 o'clock. Do Stephen or Keith, do you know that all of the people are in here at this stage, or should we just give it a few more minutes?
I think Hugh Keane was supposed to be joining us, but he's not quite here yet. I'll just give it a minute or so, and then we'll
Sure.
kick it off. Yeah.
Hi, Chris.
Me and Jackie's joined us as well. Yep. Hi, Chris, how are you?
Good, thank you.
All right.
My internet's a bit unstable, so I might have to turn my video off. But so here's a listen.
Okay.
Are you in a caravan or something, Mia?
I prefer to. I am actually. Would you like to see my caravan?
Yes.
I prefer to call it my tiny house. Hang on.
Oh. Whoa.
The party bus.
Can you see my kitchen?
Oh, that's cool.
That is pretty cool.
You've got an on-hand chef.
But I got on-hand chef, and I got actually. See, I can see. You got green outside with the hackramatas in the background.
Very nice.
Oh, beautiful. Kia ora, everybody. I'm Louisa.
Kia ora, Louisa. Right, we've got a couple of minutes past, so there seems to be a few people in here now. So I'll kick it off if that's all right. We all good to go, Steve?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Well, first of all, everybody, welcome. My name, I'm new to facilitating this. As you people that have been part of this journey for a while will be well aware that Axel Beck, previous councillor from last term, was doing the facilitating here and chairing these meetings. So I'm the newbie on the block here. But about me, my name's Eugene Patterson. Not a Waihe Newcastle Ward councillor, second term as chair of Infrastructure Committee. I acknowledge Mayor Jackie here today as an observer, and also Councillor Lisa Thompson. I was talking to her. She might pop up here somewhere, but you'll be all very familiar with Lisa. So that's a bit about me. Oh, here's Lisa jumping in now. So if everybody's all okay, unless there's somebody else that wants to open us up with a karakia, but I'm more happy to kick that off if that's okay. We all good? Is that all right? Yep. Yeah, okay then. So I'll get us going. So, e te atua, arahi o mātou whakaro, arahi o mātou kōrero, kia te tuki pai, e tēnei hui, amene. So thank you, and as again, welcome everybody. And as I said, that's me. I'm here to facilitate and help support all of the parties that we're heading in the right direction. As I said, let's have good outcomes, good discussions, and let's get into it. We've got an hour tonight, so we have a lot of technical experts in the room that can pick this up and lead us through of updates of where we're all been. So I'll hand that over. Who's taking the reins, Steve or Keith?
I'll just do some introductions if we like, just for those that are that are new to the meeting. So good evening, everyone. My name's Keith Martin. So I'm the Three Waters Manager for Waikato District Council. So help, I guess, from a strategic direction, put this project together, along with the water care team who will deliver it from a technical aspect. So perhaps if I ask Steve to go next in terms of that introduction, and Steve, if you want to pass off to Richard and so on until we've introduced the team.
Okay. Thanks, Keith. Yes, I'm Steve Howard. I am a consent planner, and I work within Richard Puller's team, who will be introduced next. But as part of my role, I've been PMing this project for a number of years, and really appreciate the support of everyone that's come along the journey thus far. That's it.
So Richard.
Hi. Yep, I'm Richard Puller. Steve works for me. I'm the infrastructure delivery manager for Waikato District for plus we do the planning and the consent and quite a few other things in my team. But I've worked closely with Steve and I'm familiar with most of the faces here. It's been a long journey, Steve?
It's been fun. It's been good.
So I guess today is really just about letting the community know where we're up to. As I say, it has been a long journey, but things have happened. And the last time we had a meeting like this was in July last year. So I guess it's just to inform the community about where we've travelled over the last 6 months. There's been a lot of groundwork done by the team in terms of the treatment plant and the discharge optioneering. So what I'd like to do is perhaps start with Richard in terms of just talking about the treatment plant upgrade and where we're currently at with that piece of the puzzle.
There's Priya, can you bring up the slides? Priya,
are you on board?
just a noise, a grunt.
Sorry.
Oh, there she is.
I'm not a Teams person. No, sorry. I'm just trying to open it now.
I can bring it up at this end probably if you want, Steve.
Are you having issues, Priya? We can probably share.
Yeah, I'm able to share. I couldn't bring my PDF on the slides. I'm not sure why.
Oh, okay.
I'll give a quick.
Anyway, I could. Do you want to talk about the upgrade or me, Steve?
You can start. I will bring up the slides. I think Priya's. We're gonna go use my one.
That would be great. Thanks, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
So in our previous meetings, we'd sort of some of the primary objectives that we were sort of agreed amongst the consultation group, and most of you have been on this journey, was to improve the treatment and try and get rid of the marine discharge. So the first part of our upgrade, because we are, and I should introduce Hugh Keane there from Regional Council, who's been on this journey all the way. Part of the thing was we regularly get some problems with our discharge where we go out of consent. So one of the things which we have got a notice on us currently, we've made the call and it's been approved by our Water Governance Board and by the Infrastructure Committee at Council, is to improve the discharge. So the treatment, so that there was a commitment back in this November meeting, I think it went through Council. Councillor Eugene will probably correct me if I'm wrong. We've committed to the works of upgrading it to MBR at the plant. So it'll be a conversion and utilisation of some of the ponds there, and that is in design now. Do you want to add to that, Stephen?
Yes. So this is the table you can see there. It just shows some of the information that was brought to the Water Governance Board, and it just shows how with the asset management plan cycles and the LTP cycles, things move. They're not static, and so this is again like so you can see that there was the timing. I mean, what was proposed was that to get the best flexible and the best practice treatment, an MBR was recommended through trials and doing other and getting expert advice, and that would be a cost of 18 million. And that would be in the years quite soon. We've actually got some monies now that's being used for the basis of design. So that's an immediate upgrade. The other monies that come through for the treatment and conveyance solution are later on. And again, that's the 24 million. So again, there's 43 million there. And through this, and I guess at the moment we're working through on the current LTP, which has a 30 million allocation, and the one before then was 18 million. But so it just shows how these things change. Is it aspirational? I don't think so. It's just that's the cost of these things, and it's comparable with other plants within the LTP as well. And it's just what best practice represents for wastewater treatment upgrades. Yes, so this needed to go to the DIA as part of the Department of Internal Affairs as part of every council needing to provide an AMP to them a year earlier than generally they'll be designed. It'll be there's going to be more studies occurring. Every council will be doing that. Every water team and councils will be doing this, and it'll be the next LTP that will reflect. No, it would be the next LTP that would have reflected the committed money.
Council approved this. We did have an allocation, and they did have to bring some money forward in the LTP to enable this to happen. It's a less amount we're immediately committed to, the 18.63 million. And then Steve will talk later on about the next steps, which will talk about the discharge options, right, Steve?
Yeah. So it's a bit of detail there, and happy to cover it through. I know Chris will have some queries in time. Maybe we can talk about that question and answers later on. The next slide was the next piece that was to be covered was infiltration, and this is just I was able to check in with representatives from the Environmental Defence Society, particularly John, who's no doubt going to turn up or listen to this. So this was something
John's here. Yep.
Oh, John's here. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this was something that again we were going to provide an update on, and I'd asked my manager Richard to cover this slide.
What we did when we were every now and then we regularly every year actually we have to submit sort of on some of our plants how much inflow infiltration. Inflow infiltration, for those who are not familiar with, is the amount of wet. It's how rainfall and groundwater gets into our pipes, and it goes through a number of ways, through illegal stormwater connections into our wastewater pipes, and through leaky old pipes and people's private laterals and cracks and things. It was surveyed back then, and you can this chart here, and we can show it a number of ways, but the percentage of flow that was arriving at the plants, and as you can see, we're comparing our four major plants here: Raglan, Huntly, and Narrawahia, and Te Kawhara. You could see you should be aiming for 70 to 80% of your flow is dry weather generated, which is normal stuff from you. Every time you flush the toilet and have a shower, heads down the pipe, the stuff we want in the pipe. But back in 2016, it was pretty shocking out in Raglan. We were getting only 40% of our flow was the real thing. The rest was groundwater ingress and direct connects. But as we've monitored the plant, we're now up. You know, sort of see now the last when we did this piece of work in 2020, we were up around 70%, and that's partly due to some of the work people have done with smoke testing and with things like low-lying manholes which get inundated in certain locations, and renewal works as well. So So that's the story. People talk about it at the moment. You can see we've got a bad boy in town, that's Huntly, and that's where, as an organisation, it's our priority to have a look at that at the moment. But Raglan can always get better, and we are looking at some issues, and we regulate CCTV the pipes on a 5-yearly cycle. And as we have funds, we reline them or replace them. So that's where we are on I, and we're happy to answer more questions. Okay, Steve.
Yes, cool. Thanks. I'll go to the next slide, which is the
just before you continue, Steve, I was just thinking, using the chat thing just to understand. There's always a lot of acronyms and abbreviations in this when you're talking technical stuff. So great, somebody asked what an MBR plant is. So if there's questions like that or you want clarity, just if you can use the chat, and I'm sure our experts here will be able to answer those questions as we go along, and then we can have a more of a oral discussion towards the end.
The MBR, though, is a membrane bioreactor. That's what it means. Okay.
Thanks.
And it is currently in our industry, it's the best form of treatment that we have technology for currently.
cool. So this is I needed to cover how we're going with the private land discharge optioneering, and this is an image that I've used in the past, and it's good just to reiterate it and sort of talk about where things have progressed with this since we have touched base. And it has been, I know, has been some time, but again, it's not like things were slow. We were very, very busy. There just things came up with. I had COVID and Christmas and elections and stuff, and it would have been ability to give greater updates as we've gone through this journey. Again, it's a tricky one when any of these land securement things are very. You need to have the right people managing it, and we have a great team in Waikato District Council, including which are property members and growth members that are working through matters alongside me. I can report on the technical parts of things, and also what would happen if some lands were being able to secure. There isn't any securement of lands at the moment, but with a private land discharge, which would be the option that would most closely align with the project objectives that were set right at the beginning of the project. I think this is the closest that we would have ever got, and probably and a good solution for Raglan if it can come together. But it's not just a big green tick. We're going to do it. There's lots of different processes. First thing is just to make a private land discharge a realistic option rather than a theoretical option. All that's for the years that everything has been theoretical. It's just been on paper. But when you get to a point where you can actually get a memorandum of understanding with a landowner, that's when you can start doing more intensive engagement, more intensive studies that would satisfy the regional council for any application. So at the moment, I guess a key thing that we've done is, alongside land experts which have undertaken subsurface drip irrigation in other parts of New Zealand, is better clarify the areas within that little blob I've put. Within that blob there's maybe 60 hectares, but that was just a study, an investigation study. There's like isolated parcels that would equate to about 20 hectares, which would be suitable, have soils that would be suitable to, when partnered with winter storage and with a relief fund for extreme weather events, could provide an annual solution theoretically for Raglan. So that's where we're at, and the studies can continue, but things will really kick off if an MOU can be signed, and that's what our experts are working towards. With I'm thinking that I anticipate this will happen. I'm optimistic that it'll happen. And if this happens, we enter a phase with application preparation called best practical option determination. That's reporting that will be required by the regional council. How did you get to the best practical option? And that's where you look at the other options that you've assessed throughout. And part of that is multi-criteria analysis, which has the community voice and hapu voice within it. So that's when it's time for the project team just to better say this is where we're at, community. This is a milestone now, and now we need to know where this is, if this is going to be. Well, how do you feel about it, etc. I know that it's not a given, but there has been a lot of support for land discharge for Raglan for many years. But it stems from supporting hapu and Māori as the current discharge is abhorrent to them, and also many community members. But it's also the ability to reuse, treat water as a resource rather than just a discharge, which point source discharge represents. So throughout this, there'll be governance. There'll be papers going to the Water Governance Board as they are key to their decision makers with all our work and steerers. And part of that, and with correct permissions, they'll be able to move to a point where you can do trialing on the site, and that actually gives solid data that experts can talk about with regional council to highlight that should consent be granted, this discharge solution wouldn't have any adverse effects and be in accordance with the RMA principles. So a lot of talking, not many breaths.
Stephen, there's one question there, which is a good segue.
It's a great question, yeah.
And it's, so Kathy's asked, what other lands have been considered as a discharge site? So perhaps if we want to talk about what lands we have considered and why we've landed where we've landed in terms of the soil testing that's been done.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So cool, that image we have there shows soil characteristics in Raglan, and the orange soils represent a loamier soil that has possibilities. The other purpley soils represent more clayey soils, which isn't suitable for subsurface drip irrigation, as in it wouldn't actually achieve it satisfactory unless you have lots and lots of land to a point where the project becomes not feasible. So when we there has been the two land options that were identified earlier. It was public land and private land. Some places, I know just Paunui in particular, has a public land discharge. They use public land. So that was the first step, because it was the chance to understand if that something could work for Raglan in that manner. We looked at again, it's just desktop, so you look for land that's suitable, and it would really be sandy soils that could suit any public discharge. So it would be that we're talking about the airstrip there, and that was quickly discounted as something that was not touchable from both Mangata Whenua and Waikato District Council's perspective, and that's fine. So the next one was an area that had been considered all throughout prior consenting processes, not just this one. It is the Wainui Reserve, and particularly the sandy soils that would be below, would be on the below it. The soils,
the coastal area.
Yeah, the coastal areas. And there was a significant amount of work, because at that point, this was maybe a year and a half ago, there was no, this is what we had to work with. So we did theoretical discussions and worked alongside the Parks Department just to provide concepts. It became clear that if there was going to be any solution that would be suitable, it wouldn't the upper areas that are fields wouldn't have much chop in it. It would be the lower areas that would have, which would be usable, but in terms of it would be challenging, but it will still be something that could be used. But again, and quite rightly, from the Parks Department saying this isn't a greenfields project, this is something that is a community asset, and if there was ever going to be any use, there need to be wider public consultations. So we did our best at that point to say that any solution wouldn't disrupt public uses like soundspace, etc. And sacred sites. These things were separated again, but it was a case of that had to be paused in favour of other solutions that were emerging, which was private land discharge sites. So as part of that, we had specialists actually look at the whole of Raglan, and there was and it was, again, you had to find the right soils and the right areas. So there was some there were areas targeted theoretically on a map, and that was, again, for those that have come on this journey, have highlighted that and highlighted that there was ability to check in and with such owners to understand if there was a willing selling, willing buyer scenario. Again, there was ability to have some discussions with mana whenua, and that was probably a solid chance. But it became quite clear that there is some mana whenua land there, but mana whenua have got very small parcels of land, and it's very precious. If there was other solutions, that would be a better option. Again, with the subject site, this is a site that is part of the growing Raglan. It just is, and it's been part of structure planning in the past, proposed district planning, rezoning, and Waikato 2070 growth strategy. So there's a lot of partnership with the landowner in the first instance. So we really even appreciated the chance to even go to the site and investigate it. It's apparent that there is a solution there, and so again, the complexity of it means you have to put a line in the sand and start researching somewhere. There wasn't any other places to look, and this one actually would be has a lot of benefits to it, including when you see the future urban edge, which I've put there. And in 30 years, it's going to be a site that isn't 20 kilometres from the town like other places. It's going to be very close. It's maybe 4.3 kilometres now, and it'll be even closer in time. The trickiest part is the topography. It's high, and so that's the biggest conveyance challenge.
But all of it, land care experts, we walked over a lot of land, Steve, and it's all up in these orange areas where you have up in the higher plateaus above Raglan, that you have these loamy soils which are suitable for the subsurface tripper option.
Cool. So I'm on track with the agenda. I can I'll just go back. I'll just flick to the next slide, which was something that was a query that was said. What's happening with, how is this project comparable to Rotorua? Because Rotorua lakes have something that has got some comparable features and some that aren't. So just very broadly, I've put some notes there which you can read. I'll just go through it quite quickly and show that image and refer to the image there. They have like a hybrid plant that sits there, and since 1991 they have been using spray irrigation into the forest area over. Can you see my mouse, or it doesn't really matter? You can see those orange, that yellow square. It's in the Whakaweta forest around there. That was a spray irrigation system with maybe a permeate quality that was quite similar to what we have with existing ponds. The differences here was that it was a pumice soil, and the thought was that a spray irrigation will be able to permeate through the soils quite quickly, and it would be captured in a wetland down below, and there'll be further bioremediation allowing a discharge to the lake. Again, there was a couple of factors there. There was a Waikato Tribunal settlement, and also the Lakes District have their own version of quite similar to the river legislation that we have to protect lakes, and it became apparent that the system wasn't going to meet that, and too many tons of nitrogen and phosphorus were heading into the waterways there. So my key points were that the land discharge methodologies of the current system in Rotorua Lakes are different. They use a surface irrigation rather than a subsurface irrigation. the soils mean that it's okay. I mean, it's just going to go through the soils, and when it rains, there's not going to be particular co-mixing with and runoff, because in the first instance, the treated wastewater has gone through the soils. What has happened is I'll go to the next slide. There was a long consenting history here as well. There was in 2015, a steering committee came together and just say, cool, we've got a direction to get out of the forest. Where to from here? So they, again, with getting the right principles in place, engagement, getting a steering committee together, which included a cultural arm. They were able to get come to a point where there would be a full MBR upgrade. Presently, there isn't. It's just I've called it a bionutrient removal system that and a smaller membrane bioreactor, and that makes up their treatment train. It goes to the storage area there that I've labelled 3, and then that will go to discharge from there. The plan in the lodged application was to turn the storage area into a land contact area, which would have rocks and rivers and touching soils and vegetation to create a NOAA environment, which is like a neutral in terms of Matarangi Māori values. And it could have been, and it was envisaged that it would be something that would have other cultural markers as well. Again, it got to a point, but there's and it's with New Zealand legislation, principles include Treaty of Waitangi and making sure that Māori are able to practice kaitiakatangi. It became apparent that the project had to move in because the proposal didn't reach that. Quite similar to Raglan, and so it was withdrawn, and now the movement is that the Rotorua Lakes has committed to a full MBR upgrade, as in what will be proposed with the land contact system, but they're still they're going to turn optioneering for discharge to a non-point source lake discharge, which was proposed. So that was my quick summary, John, after we had the discussion. Hope that sort of helps. We can talk about it in a quick sec. I'll just go to the last slide, I think. So again, it was just working alongside Priya and looking at our website, and the work that's been done. There's ability to update our website and put some other key documents on there, which hopefully just give some better description of what subsurface drip irrigation looks like and what the consenting scenarios are for Raglan as I see it. And again, the main thing for me was you can't leave people behind. Things get terribly complicated, and even I don't understand it. Some of it, I rely on my experts, and I don't have to, but I have to rely. My job is to make sure that it's palatable and understandable for everyone, and that's where I'm sort of heading. And so grateful to receive any feedback. And these documents can be live, and I know that there's going to be version 2 of the sub-drip irrigation notes. The key thing, I guess, with the consenting overview is just highlighting we have a land discharge. Private land discharge option, which I have optimism for, but it's not the only land discharge option. We have a public land discharge option, which we discussed, which was paused in favour of a better opportunity, which we've explored. But again, yes, and there's also the status quo, which wouldn't suit anyone, but it still exists. So I just gave my view of where things will go from here. If the private land discharge option doesn't come together, we'll have to go back to the public land consideration, which is what each consenting project team has done numerous years. Now we have a better treatment solution secured, and it may offer different opportunities. It would still be the lower, sandier soils. It would bring its own challenges and resilience issues. The status quo, again, that wouldn't suit anyone. It particularly wouldn't suit the Environment Court or any decision maker. And I anticipate, like this last consent was 12 to 15 years. I think it would be a lot shorter duration to say an alternative is needed in terms of giving effect to the principles of the RMA. So that's all I've got. Chairman, I'm going to let you take over, and we've got time for questions, etc.
Yep, we sure do. If you want to,
I can stop sharing.
you stop sharing. And we'll... All right. Thanks, Steve, Richard, and Keith, for that update. There has been a few questions going through in the chats. Been trying to follow them, but they were coming through a little bit fast there. So, is there anybody that wants to have a question that hasn't been raised yet? Chance to log into
Chris.
on our RCB meeting. Can you see that, Steve?
Oh, yeah. Just wondering, Stephen, if you... Oh, it disappeared. It was from Chris. Can you turn your mic on, Chris, and you can...
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Just in the community board meeting, I asked you about whether the MBR upgrade could be proceeded before the consent is lodged for the land disposal, so that we're not like waiting for this upgrade while we go through all the land discharge process.
Yeah, I can quickly give my views, and others might want to talk after me, but I did I've talked to our technical experts, Garrett, about that same thing. The upgrade is going, it needs to happen in any case. Like with Te Kōwhara, the upgrade needs to start because there's an abatement notice on the present wastewater treatment plant. You know that commits just haven't worked, and they've got a high TSS which can go through the roof during summer. So in terms of that happening, it is. In terms of taking it off from the discharge option, again, as explained before, it will just be it'll be diverting resources to an application, which I know I've sort of highlighted with the status we're at with this, and I feel like we could be quite close to something to wind it up. But again, we're at the luxury of the regional council, and that's the higher discussions that are done by managers.
And Chris, too, I mean, we did look at options which would just address the total TSS. That's suspended solids, it's too murky. And it's far better to put the money into the final solution. I think Hugh would back us up there, that the regional council doesn't want us spending money on short-term things. They'd rather
No. Yeah,
see.
The question was,
this is part of the final solution.
Yeah, the question was always about, like, once we're set on the MBR, can we push ahead with the MBR? Can we chew gum and walk and push ahead with the MBR for the treatment while we continue the process of getting the land discharge, which is going to take longer and be more complicated than the MBR upgrade?
So Chris, perhaps I'll answer that for you. The answer is that the funding's been approved. So now that it's a project, and we are marching ahead with the completion of the design and then the installation of the plant. So it's proceeding now.
So are you all good with that, Chris? Clarity around that? Okay, cheers, thanks.
Thank you.
There's, Kathy has put a question on the chat. So given the private land discharge option presented has been discussed for a while, why haven't we been consulted, given we are immediate neighbours and our family, Cleves, have lived here for over 65 years?
I can respond.
Yes, thanks.
Yep. At the moment, we're just having sight of investigation like we've done with others. We don't have a secured option. I mean, an MOU. We don't have an option yet. It's an MOU that, in principle, lets the landowner and WDC work towards something. So again, if this is the right site for it, that's where I highlighted that there'll be a process to determine if it's the best practical option. That's where the key stakeholders, we have to have and interested parties have a voice in there and part of the decision making alongside Māori and alongside a lot other factors as well. In terms of consultation, that's when you start identifying key stakeholders and having bigger discussions. And it's a case of it's just, I don't know, it's sort of a lot of people, it's just an understanding of the processes, and that can oftentimes take people from opposition to neutral to in favour, as long as that the details are understood and it's not just thinking it's a done deal. The technical experts are just talking to each other. Community's not involved. Community will be involved. Don't know, and with the parts that are in, I mean, the website that will send through a link to it. There is detail there that we've tried to address as best we can these queries and give and highlight that the adverse effects. If theoretically there'd be no adverse effects, this isn't an experiment. There's other places in New Zealand that do it. That they're able to do land discharge that are quite comparable to Raglan, and we've put some examples there. We've got the experts that have done this. So if we get the green lights, then there should be. Then I hope that we can convince everyone. I mean, I hope we can get support from the Raglan community, because it's something that has been a challenge between council and hapu in the community for forever, for many decades.
Thanks, Steve. And I think too, was it Kathy's question there, is it's probably sort of like well, how I see it, and I've been keeping an eye over this for a long time, even though I'm new to this this group tonight, is that it's sort of like a sort of just about on that sort of holding position at the moment, is going through that process of identifying viable sites and viable soils, and then actually not going guns blazing into the next stages until you can actually understand an MOU, and then obviously that's a whole lot more consultation has to roll out with affected parties, neighbours, etc. But if there's no understanding, or you can get to that stage of there isn't any MOU, you probably wouldn't go ahead and start and continue investing and doing investigations and that. So I think it's a sensible way to be doing it, but I do totally understand where your question and where you're coming from. So we need to keep that in the back of our minds, that if an MOU does come to fruition, Steve, that there's that immediate dialogue with those affected parties.
That's right, and
or just clarity of where they're at that stage.
It will enable a WDC led project, and it will change, and so it will be. There won't be just mystery. It won't be a mystery. It'll be following best practice.
Yep. Thanks, Steve. So next one was from Hugh. Are you able to confirm revised timeframes given the current application has been lodged for 3 years now?
Yeah, would you like me to sort of just talk further about that? I mean, as the regulator, Waikato Regional Council obviously wants to see progress, and we acknowledge the investigations and the research that's been done so far. But ultimately, both councils here have a responsibility to our community to move things along and get the current operation authorised, or agree on revised timeframes that's going to give some certainty to the the required upgrade to the current wastewater treatment plant.
Yep. So the legal operations through the Section 124 part of the RMA, just for everyone who knows this stuff or not, but and it's oftentimes it's difficult for it is difficult for any wastewater provider to have it's not like building a house or a garden. It takes time, and every wastewater provider appreciates regional councils recognising that. As long as they see progress, again, as I said earlier, we have an application and it can be processed now, but it would be a diversion of resources otherwise. So a revised timeline would be there's with a Section 124, it's a time there isn't a 3 year or anything. It's sort of you just relying on you just want to have a position.
What Hugh's after though, Steve, is what how fast do you think we can implement that? Is that correct, Hugh? The treatment plant part, and get us
Yeah.
back into compliance, plus vastly improve the effluent. Is that what you're after?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
as Stephen said, currently there's an abatement notice on the performance of the plant that was issued by the regional council, recognising that suspended solids do vary, and we've had the odd blip of E. coli because of that, because the UV unit, is challenged when you've got, high suspended solids coming through.
Absolutely.
So it's really just, hey, what are the revised timeframes? What can both councils assure the community on in terms of revised timeframes?
Our proof spend, Hugh, we're in design now, and that takes about 12 months. So our actual expenditure will start in early 2024, and then it'll be an 18-month build. So it'll be completed. The plan is, and that's how we've programmed our funding, to have it completed middle of 2025.
We'll formalise that timeline for you, Hugh.
Thank you.
Richard, can you confirm which part of the project you're talking about with that timeline?
This is the MBR upgrade.
Okay, cool. Just
the actual plant upgrade.
Yeah. And that's
the other one
we've helped Chris's previous question as well. Yep. Around timelines there. So thanks for that. Next one, Kathy as well. Have you seen that, Steve? Just in regard to, we're thanking you for your last comments, but also the private landowners that had suitable areas of suitable soils. Was there many others that had been approached or identified?
Yes, there was. Again, you look at that area has been highly subdivided in times past. You need to have a suitable area to even start with, so you could discount a lot of others. You could say there was I went through a process of contacting 40 landowners, and again, it has to be with these projects, it's a willing selling, willing buyer scenario. There isn't because so I don't know if that covers it. Yes. Extensively covered it with landowners that had there could have been some chop with their land
and had suitable land size to offer.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, guys. Before we jump off those questions, Mark, would you like to follow up?
I'm one of the Mangatawhiri Road residents, so thank you for your information. It's really good. I had a couple of questions. The other sites that you looked at and investigated, did that involve property owned by the same property owner as the site settled on? It's kind of interesting to me that there are the soil map shows the same soil types, which would seem to be appropriate, much closer to the wastewater treatment plant, which, as a layperson, you would have to think that would be a much cheaper option. And the other question I had was about the ground truthing of the soil map. I know those soil maps are pretty old these days, and in terms of the suitability of the soils in the selected site, I shouldn't say selected site, but preferred site.
Thanks, Mark.
Cool. I'll give it a nudge. Yes.
No,
that's cool. There was. We'll tag team. I'll do. You can enhance You can enhance my answer. So yeah, there was, in terms of the soil map and areas that get closer to the wastewater treatment plant, it would have been great to have something that was adjacent or nearby. We tried, and it didn't. And that opportunity didn't arise. And there's also a growth strategy in earmarked areas that will be part of residential growth in time, which has had the correct lens on it by growth staff and planners. Yep. So when you look at holistically at the area that has been selected, there would be, as a site of investigation, it does start getting very close to the urban edge in any case. The part is that even within that area, there's been a lot of, it's not just a flat piece of land, like some places have had the ability to just do a square subsurface strip area, and it's all uniform soils and topography. In Raglan, that isn't the case, and so it's been there'll be theoretically the 20 hectares are very, very, very good soils, but there's subsidiary areas around it that wouldn't be particularly good. They wouldn't be useful. So that's where any securement has to figure that out. Like, is it going to be a lease, or is there something that could be some sort of public amenity and offset planting, etc. In terms of closer, I don't. You are working in a partnership with a landowner, and you can't just say we want this, but help. But I'm satisfied that the area that we got can be used for that. And I forgot the first part of the question.
Yeah, I think Mark was asking a bit about the maps and how theoretical they are.
Okay.
So yeah, we did ground truth them. We had an expert from Lanc who walked with us. We walked, we dug holes. Yeah, we did a fair bit of ground truthing, and there is more of that sort of thing to happen if we can get a memorandum of understanding, like the councillor said. The on-site investigations we'll have to do, if this does get the green light from the landowner, are expensive, and you don't want to repeat them, and they do involve bores and things like that, and monitoring of groundwater and things like that, to get an understanding of how it works, and modelling as well, Steve, of how the soil doesn't just take hydraulically, how it takes up the nutrients and things like that.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Just jump back on. There's no other hands up here, so just jump back on. Chris has got a good question here. So with land discharge of an MBR treated water to the surrounding groundwater and the effects on private bores in the area, is the research around that? I'm not sure of, what private bores, but I'm sure there probably is within the facility. Does anybody have any?
I can probably give that an answer. So in terms of subsurface drip irrigation, it's not a new science. It's relatively well understood. Certainly there's good research around soil characteristics and the final polishing of treated wastewater within soils and the potential effect, and that goes down to the application rate, porosity of soil, saturation levels, water runoff, and so on. So it's known. We need to do more work in terms of understanding the piece of property that we're actually looking at, and that's just what Richard covered off earlier on. But yeah, it's not something that's new. The other thing I think that needs to be said here as well is we're looking at land discharge as the primary discharge point, but we're also looking towards the marine environment as a discharge application as well. And that's on the basis that in times of high saturation, so say let's take a look at the events we've just been through with the cyclones and rainfall. There may be that the land gets to a point for a period of time due to environmental factors that we've reached saturation point, and applying more water to that piece of land would become problematic for a variety of different reasons, either runoff, non-treatment, the ability for the soil to accept those receiving waters. So the ocean discharge becomes our plan B, if you like. So we have both, but with the soil and land discharge being the primary consideration, and endeavouring to be able to take most of the flows most of the time.
And Chris, the papers that are referred to in the last slide is site specific, and actually the whole paper's on subsurface drip irrigation and looking at that subject site and identifying bores. Because in summary, I guess it's I'll give you a chance to read it, but it's the moment there's a baseline that has to be considered. At the moment, it's farming, and there's nutrient inputs and pathogens through that. In any case, this is going to be changed, and you go, but we're pumping a lot of highly treated wastewater in there. That's true, but you don't do it in a manner that even super saturates the soil in any case, because you can't, if rains come in any case, you'll if you super saturate it, it just turns into an impervious surface and there's runoff. So you only irrigate it to a point where it's where there's the most of it is held for rainwater saturation in any case. So it's 70 to 90% can be used for rainwater. Again, with all subsurface manner devices, with systems, it's critical that it's managed in a way that nutrients and pathogens can't get into any subsurface groundwater. And with this, the MBR, there isn't, nutrients have been stripped quite significantly out from it. And once we get further along this, I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity to go to Mere. And that, as I've said in the past, it's people that have actually visited it and see the permit that comes out. It really does change a lot of, it does give people a different perspective on highly treated wastewater. I'll give you a chance to read that note.
Pathogens are stripped out to a large extent too, plus we UV it prior to discharge. So yeah, I think once we secure the land, we'll definitely we'll tell people more about those next steps, Steve?
Sure.
Yep, great, excellent, thanks for that. John Lawson's just put a comment on there in regard to Water Governance Board 18th of January 23, so that's very recent, and about the non-compliance abatement notice. So I can't give you an answer to that, John. Somebody else might be, but I do know that I think everybody's doing their real best to work closely, our council and regional council. As you mentioned just before about timelines and where things are at, I think they're well over this topic, and unless Hugh's got any other comment for that, but I'm pretty sure they're working closely to address these all the time. Is it? Are you, Hugh, from your side of things, are you happy where that's at?
Yes, I mean we've served an abatement notice for the plant to comply with total suspended solids by that date, and we've had confirmation from the District Council that they intend to achieve that date in terms of compliance. So we'll be monitoring and watching and see as progress is made.
Excellent, thanks, Hugh. Right, do we have any more questions, comments to the people that know how to answer them for you? So Helen, where's Steve going on the screen? Can you see that?
Yep, I'll read it out. So next step.
Yep. Next step.
Securing MOU after this point, we as neighbours to the proposed location lose our ability to negotiate with you to have this plant moved.
Yeah.
So again, it is, I'll just reiterate some themes that I've been trying to highlight through this. At the moment, we have options that we've presented to the key stakeholders and others throughout. It's a public land discharge, a private land discharge, and others that have been discounted through the process, including an MBR to a freshwater stream. We have, again, it's a tricky one with treated wastewater. There's not a whole lot of options, but you set objectives at the beginning of the project, and we've adhered very closely to that, I think. And so we're thinking that this site would most closely meet those objectives. And there isn't alternatives. At the point we've exhausted that, we've done every practical process to find somewhere else, and there isn't. So again, with the MOU signed at this point, as we propose, if we lose the ability to negotiate, it becomes an option, and that's where we go through the RMA process, and we have to do our best to have the public voice and the community voice in there as well. There's lots of affected parties, neighbouring people what the effect there will be we have to assess that effect, and that's what the RMA process does. It's called a Section 92. This will be publicly notified, and there's ability to have those discussions. It's our job to highlight the effects. What are real effects? Because no one wants wastewater anywhere. We want to throw it to the moon, but we can't. So we have to think about holistically what's best for Raglan. The point source discharge, I don't think will ever be settled as the best practical option. So this consenting round, we're doing our best to try and find an alternative.
Thank you, Steve. Edward's comment there around, as it was the other means achieving compliance, read 25-24. Jump in here, guys, if I get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the abatement notice, as Hugh just mentioned, was around solids, not everything. So, and our staff are confident that they will reach those requirements by that June 24 date around the abatement notice issues. So.
The abatement notice gives an 18-month time frame, but as Richard explained, there's with that the timing of actually a physical upgrade is going to be a year's study and then 2 years construction, so that doesn't equal 18 months. So it's a discussion to be had. All I can say is that the team has done trials to understand if there was an easier quick solution. That was what I've highlighted in the past through the adding PACL and doing a filter system. It was able to get the high end out of the permit, the treated wastewater, like 200 parts per million. It could get it down quite low, but the finite, the consent limit is very it's very low. It's 20 to 30 parts per million, which is what fresh water has, and it couldn't be achieved through filtering and PACL. So again, that's where it's okay. Next steps. You don't want to have a lost asset. You don't want to build something that won't even reach the existing consent requirement. So again, it's solids. Solids are with fresh water that can cause eutrophic conditions. Not so much for salt water, but it can mask some UV. Theoretically, it could mask some blasting of the UV and viruses and pathogens. Therefore, don't get destroyed. I don't.
But we can confirm at the next meeting the actual. We'll have to go back to our project manager and confirm that, I think.
Yep. I think, already then, okay. That's fine. I think that we need to, as winter discharge to the was still part of the plan. That's probably, I think somebody might have wanted to give a bit of an update to that. Keith, can you see that bottom one?
Yeah, I can. So winter discharge is likely to be still part of the plan. So the harbour won't be discounted in totality.
Yeah, the harbour discharge would be the plan is for it to be an incredibly rare occurrence. So, okay,
correct.
We do, we will. Obviously, our fields have to be rotated. There's a number of fields, so we have to rest them. So, how we rotate the fields and understand their ability to take water during those times, we'd have to look at. Plus, we will utilise ponds at the plant to hold where it flows back. They won't be unutilised. They'll still be utilised as that sort of storage, wherever storage. Sometimes there could be instances where our pumped line, we have a massive power cut or somebody digs up our pipeline if the scheming to head for a land discharge, which we'd need an alternative for as well. So
the key thing,
the intent isn't that is that it only would ever be used in an extreme situation.
Yeah. Was with the weather bomb and Mangawai, that was a case of their on-site storage wasn't sufficient and their ponds overflowed, and that's the key thing here. It's more like the winter storage you can do it as much as practical, but when there's with these infrequent events, which we've all lived through what's happened in the last, but you got to have a plan B. Otherwise, what do you know? We're looking at something that's what's even worse. So that's something we have to work closely with Mana Whenua on. And again, as long as we adhere to the objectives, which is to respect kaitiakitanga, we just hope that it could be a good conversation to have in time and with the recognition that we've done everything we possibly can to meet those objectives.
All right, very good. Thanks very much. Not so much questions on the chat there, but a lot of comments, which I think is worthwhile looking into and like directing answers. I see Edward sort of replied to a couple, so we'll go to this as the last question, and then we'll close off. We're going a bit over 8 o'clock, but can you clarify what we will be looking at from the Mangatawhiri Road? What does subsurface irrigation look like? In my view, I think you won't even see it, but I'll pass that on to the experts.
Is it Helen? Yes, I'll get. We will make contact. There's lots of. I've got lots of. I mean, the WC website has notes, memos that highlight specifically that and just show examples of what they look like in other parts of New Zealand. In terms of what it looks like, again, I refer to the Pauanui example because I've been there and looked at it. It's in a park where there's a cricket pitch and people use it, and it's on the cusp of residential houses. With this, it's a case of you wouldn't see it. You'd see what it would mean. It would change the land use from the present cow, the present herds, to something that would grow lucerne or another crop species. And it would be in the summer, you'd see, in a dry summer, you'd see burnt off grass, but you'll see patches of green grass, which would be used for cut and carry. You get contractors to come and cut it, and you'd perhaps get 3 more cycles of cut and carry or hay created or silage created for that, and that's what you'd see. You'd see some increased activity of agricultural contractors doing cut and carry.
Can I just add to that too, because you might also find that carbon sequestration is also desirable as well. So you may find that the fact somebody decides to plant it out in trees, and so that's all you'll see is a new forest being established.
Steve, can I also make a comment about people worried about would you pull water from the groundwater next to a highly treated wastewater plant? Most of these people are pulling water next to commercial operating farms with a highly untreated animal effluent directly going into their waterways. So along with other nutrients that are added to the industrial farming. So I think we really have to look at the science and not just be like, oh my God, it's human wastewater, and actually really dive a bit deeper.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, good comment there.
And for our projects in TK, we've taken people to our existing MBR plant and shown them the quality of effluent, and we can give you the breakdown of what's in, the effluent is. It's crystal clear water. People think that they think that's all their poos and wees. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Right. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending tonight. I know a lot of people would have had some long days, and so much appreciated that people jump in into the Zoom and participate. Thanks to Richard, Keith and Steve for your technical knowledge and answering of the questions. Appreciate me and Jackie jumping in and having a listen to and seeing the comments and questions from the community, and much appreciated, everybody. And so we will try to have a bit more of a start to get these drop-ins or Zoom sessions a bit more regular. Everybody's starting to get back into a more of a settled pattern. So Steve will sure start to.
We do a monthly one seemed to be quite good, and then when it was a slow one, that a vlog could occur, but monthly is fine. It's just really just appreciate having your chairperson, everyone that turns up.
Yeah, no, thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
So as always, it's not just all about month-to-month meetings. These will be very good if we get back into the monthly cycle, but there's always people here, myself, you've got Councillor Thompson out there that are always willing to take questions, relay them and pass them on to the right people to get the right information. So that's there all the time. So, but first of all, lastly, thank you everybody for coming tonight. This is my first stance in this group. So hopefully I wasn't too much worse than Councillor Beck, and we'll move from there. But
It's worse.
I'll hand you over to
Well,
Councillor Lisa Thompson, and to finish us off with a karakia. Thank you, Lisa.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora koutou, everyone that has come this evening. Thank you, Eugene, for facilitating this hui, and to staff and to all of our concerned and passionate residents of Mangatawhiri Road. Appreciate your time and energy, and just acknowledge your concerns, and that we're looking forward to engaging with you more around this kaupapa. And so in that, I'd like to close us with the karakia. Unehia ki te urutapu a tānei. Kia wātia, kia māma, te ngākau, te wairua, te tinana, te hiningaro, I te ara tātaku, koia rā e rongo, whakeria ki rongo, kia wātia, ai rā kua wātia, haumie, huie, taikie. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora. Thank you all. Keep well, keep safe, and we will see you in approximately a month's time on another Zoom catch up. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.